Okay, so July 19th, 2026. I will finish this up. No, this is not it. Andre, this is not it. There should be another one there with turkey bones and stuff in it. And all those carrot peels. Is this with the carrot peels? Is this with the carrot peels? Yeah. With that moldy food. You buy it, you have it in your house, flip it over in here. You buy it right there, flip it right over, right here. Just right at the end.
Here?
Yeah, just flip it upside down. No, right there.
Where's right there?
On the dirt, right here. Yeah. Good. Turn, just good enough. Alright, yo, I'll deal with it. Okay? I hoard mold food. Right? I like to buy groceries that mold fast. You know, you bring them in your house. I can't even buy papaya. I try and ripen papaya in the house, and within 3 or 4 days, it starts to mold. So I'm going to do this fast. Just loosen up the dirt. You can see everything dirt likes. So, you see? It's all buried in. Okay, so I'm done. I don't know if somebody stole my cup or what. I didn't see it inside. Anyway, maybe Andre brought it in. You can see? So, I'll never use it in terms of... It will sit like that for a year or two. I'm going to cover it up either with straw and leave it like that, or I'm going to cover it with landscaping fabric and then maybe some straw. I don't know. I only have so much landscaping fabric, so, and I'm not buying any more because I'm fed up with this crap. You see? So there's a little bit of that. For the next, I don't know, Andre can come in and start cutting things back. Look at this. So what will happen here is it will just turn into dirt eventually. I fed it a little bit. I would have preferred to feed it more, but you know, you can't have those food scraps hanging around for too long. Crime of the century, kind of like a fly. You know what I mean? Okay, so I'm not in the dirt anymore, right? And I did say I was going to read something. So I pulled out the information around Amari and his MRI in 2019, where somebody, I don't know who it is, I thought it was the current, it should have been the people, I don't know. Nobody told me. We're in 2026, okay? July 19th of 2026, I found out this information about Amari being injured, quote unquote, basically at the time of his birth or right after, based on what the MRI was showing in 2019. However, nobody told me that information. Until within the last 6 months or so through the neurologist, because he mentioned it to me. And I'm like, excuse me? What did you say? That's not what I've been told all these years. I was told that Shimei did it. Yeah. Oh my God. I'm having a really hard time seeing though. And so anyway, this MRI was done November 21st, 2019. Okay? I'm going to try and read what I can. The physician was a Singh so-and-so, right? This was done at the Children's Hospital because the first one at the Surrey Memorial Hospital was botched, basically because they were going in and out with the big-ass, heavy, whatever doors they use, slamming, and the medication, I guess, wasn't strong enough to keep him sedated, so between the two, he woke up in the middle of it and was crying, and I heard it, and it irked me, and they wanted to do it again because they botched it, and I said, no, you can book the Children's Hospital. So that's how it got done at the Children's Hospital. All right. So, with that said, then, from that point forward, well, really, since 2018, it was all Shmei's fault because she had done some drugs, cocaine, in the first trimester of her pregnancy. Plus, she was in an abusive relationship with somebody that she didn't want to have a kid with because she wanted to have a career and all these other things, but for whatever reason, she felt loyal to the relationship. Besides that point, she kept Amari on my advice, at my request, because she had already aborted 2 babies. I think one was Julian's, and I think maybe one was Freddie, because she didn't want to be a, 16-year-old freaking mother, 17. I don't know when she did it, but she somehow did it for herself. But besides that point, and because he came out jittery, and she had admitted in her medical files when she was going through the process of whatever, right, that she had done a little bit of drugs, cocaine, in the first trimester, and for whatever reason, they put it in everybody's head and ran with it, right, and said that the reason Amari was jittery was because of that, which is a bunch of fucking bullshit. I'm sorry, boo-boo bullshit, right? All right. And you know I've been fighting a good fight, people, since day one. All right? When it all started. So, to get this information within the last 6 months, being that I guess it was written in 2019, but no doctor that I have come into contact with, or nurse, or other so-called health professional, dietitian, whatever, you know, physiotherapists, whatever, they're all under the impression, all of them, through the whole freaking gang, that it was all Shmei's fault. That was the rumor in the halls. Remember those days when I used to talk about it? Yeah. And then, I'm assuming this was written in 2019, but the pediatrician didn't even tell me. Right? Because he wants to mislead with the jitteriness and blame it on the mother when in fact it was the hospital, by dragging out her pregnancy and not factoring in that she had previous abortions. 5 days to have contractions is a long time to be sent away 2 times without being monitored, and you're 2 weeks into due date. Right? You know, you can have babies 2 weeks before due date. If you haven't had them by 2 weeks after the due date, they tend to induce you. Okay? That's what they'll do after 2 weeks. So, you know, there's no reason for her to be sent away 2 times. Right? Outside of what? Dragging it out. She gets to the hospital, and then what? She's in labor still after 5 days, right? But nothing, her cervix isn't opening. Did they ever stop to ask why her cervix wasn't opening? Maybe because she had those abortions and it injured, those abortions injured her. Maybe that's why her cervix wasn't opening. But, you know, to have labor for 5 to 6 days And then all of a sudden, you know, she's in the hospital for 12 hours after, you know, going in and out for 5 days, right? So you're on to the 6th day or whatever the hell it is, and they keep her going for 12 hours because she says, well, I want to have natural birth. Yeah, but, you know, you've been doing this for the last 5 days, and clearly there's a problem, and, you know, and maybe we should, like, you know, I don't know, do something. Just don't drag it out for 12 hours, blame her, and then have his heartbeat drop, not go back up, and turn it into an emergency C-section where it probably took 20 to 30 minutes to get her into the OR, and by that time, Amari came out like this. Plus, he pooped in her. And he didn't poop when her water broke, because her water broke out on the stairs. Okay? So they couldn't send her away like they did the first 2 times, because when she went back on the 3rd time, her water had already broke and he hadn't pooped yet. All right. And then they dragged it out for 12 hours, even though they knew she was struggling with it for 5 days. And then he came out, and yeah, the twitching that he does now is the twitching he did when he was born, because I have this little teeny weeny video where they just took him out of the stomach, had him on the table, were starting to wipe him up and that, and he went like this. And I told that to the neurologist when I went to see him, and he's still doing it. Okay, so I'm not going to really rush with this. I spilt my coffee only a little bit. I got mad just thinking, because it's like in her medical files, it's listed in there that she got no prenatal care. I've mentioned it before. Like she was just some street rat that crawled in out of a freaking gutter and showed up pregnant all of a sudden. You know, she was disappeared for 8 months, 9 months, right? 8.5 months. She was disappeared. The hospital was never aware of anything. As far as they were concerned, she was just a sewer rat that crawled out of a gutter and crawled itself in at the last minute to give labor, okay? Right? So if they're going to put down that she received no prenatal care, why? Ask yourself why. Well, because when he came out like that, right? You know what I'm saying? It's easy to blame the mom because she must have been a fucking, what is that called? Boo-boo sewer rat that was a junkie. It says right here on intake, she admitted to doing drugs in the first trimester. So therefore, she's a junkie and got no prenatal care and just crawled in off the streets at the last minute to give birth. Yeah, because she what? Got straight for a second and figured it out? Yeah, okay. Okay. But no, they wanted to run with, oh, well, there's fentanyl in her system when the baby was born. Oh, I wonder why. Because you gave her an emergency C-section and you cut her open and then you used your dope to freaking write in that the reason the baby was jittery was because of her, because she had opiates in her blood. But you knew that was a lie. It wasn't because of her, because that opiate was theirs. And that's why the social workers never were called. And she just got to come home because it was a fuckery thing to begin with. It was just one big cover-up. And everybody ran with it. Didn't matter where I went, people. What doctor I seen. What frickin' feeding team I seen. What frickin' physiotherapist team I seen. Or the frickin', what is the hip surveillance program, that team. Everybody in their mind, through verbal subliminal messaging, blamed Shimei. Even though nobody, not one told me what's written here. Which proves what I have been saying. It happened at the time of his birth, due to negligence. Yeah. Does the government care? No. Oh, you want to complain about flies, but you don't care about mice? Or rats in the ceiling? Isn't that interesting? Why? Because you'd have to hold the landlord to account? Is that it? Or leave it to me to take it to the Landlords and Tenancy Act branch and fight my landlord for them to help me with the mouse situation and the rat situation when it comes to the outside part of securing entrance points to prevent rodents from getting inside your house so that you can finally get rid of them. They don't care about that. No, they want to complain about a freaking fly. Yeah, okay. Andre went off and bought some fly swatters. They were funny looking. I don't know where they are. There's a big ass little handle. I couldn't see them even if I wanted to anymore. You know, I'm used to those long-handled ones with you. In the old days, you know, when we used to get newspapers, be able to buy newspapers, we just roll up the newspaper, put on some elastic band, and whack it with the freaking newspaper. That's how we dealt with flies when I was a kid. That's how long flies have been around. But for whatever reason, I'm being put on probation for flies. Yeah, okay. Just like Shimei is being written in to have no prenatal care, and that the reason Amari is the way Amari is because of her, even though that's not true. And they all ran with it. And everybody ignored this. Now, I'm just going to try and read what I can, but clearly I'm struggling with my eyes. And that's another thing. Turn that down. I don't want to hear the jitter right now. That's another thing. Oh, my eyes. Oh, the pressure's gone up. Use the drops. Oh, it would make me sick. Oh, that's okay. We'll do surgery on this and put a tube in there, and you know they'll bring down the pressure and blah blah blah. You know, you won't have to use an extra drop. Okay, so I go for it, right? Because I'm being told that if I don't, I'll be blind in 2.5 months. I didn't really have a choice. Okay. And I don't think those eye drops were working either. You know what I'm saying? Either or. I went that route, and you know what? It hasn't even been 6 months, and I feel like crap. Okay? I get these hue colors, and, you know, and it gotten blurrier, and, you know, I'm going to phone him up. I'm going to say, what the hell? Maybe take the damn tube out. I've been asking him to change the lens ever since he put it in. He keeps telling me he won't do it because the so-called lens is fine. Yeah, right. I don't think so. You know, it's irritated. I can feel it, right? And it's not helping. It's making everything worse. How convenient. Talk about perfect timing. Perfect timing. Okay. Now, if I get a lawyer, it's because I can't see anything anymore. And I'm too easy to take advantage of. Yep. I was able to see with these, but not anymore. Okay, if I move them, there's two parts. There's this part and there's this part. But these things I had in 2007, maybe. Right? Okay. Findings. All right. Now I'm going to try and read this. Some of these words I can't pronounce. Generalized white matter volume loss. Normal formation of the corpus callosum, however, thinning of the body and apellinym is noted. Mildly enlarged lateral ventricles with irregular or their contour and decreased abutting gray-white matter differentiation no acute hemorrhage in general. The deep gray nuclei have volume loss and patchy signal abnormality. Bilateral, systematical, mildly small hippocampi are seen. The cerebellum and midbrain are unremarkable. I'm just trying to read it, okay? The pituitary orbits and paranasal sinuses are unremarkable. No issues, right? Normal cranicervical junction impression findings are concerning for remote insult with generalized cerebral white matter volume loss and evidence of damage to and glycis within the deep gray nuclei, particularly the thalami, correlate with the birth, perinatal history, and any known events since birth. That could have led to hypoxia, ismametic, and I have that information all printed out. Or should have did that, and or periventricular leukomenica. Okay, so what they're saying here, and I found the key words, right? Okay. All right. New sentence. Ready? Correlate with the birth. Correlate with the birth. It either happened at birth the reason they did the emergency C-section is because the umbilical cord was wrapped around Amari's neck. And at one point, after 5 to 6 days of contractions, it didn't expand. So that means he wasn't getting oxygen. So his heart dropped. And for most babies, the hearts will come back up after the contraction is over. But not for Amari, because it was just way too long. So that by the time they took him out at birth, that's what we got, was a Houdini baby. Okay? I'm just saying. Perinatal history and any known events since birth. So that's why the neurologist said it happened at birth or right after. No, it happened at birth, right before he came out, because they took him out. If they wouldn't have taken him out, he would have died. And it took 8 years to get that information, well, 7, because we found out when he was a year old, basically what was wrong with him. Well, no, it'd be 8 years come September. Just as I'm going blind. Isn't that interesting? And I'm on probation. Right? Who cares about rats and mice? They're not important. Because if they were, you'd have to deal with the landlords that don't do nothing about it. Because for anyone to think that I am the only person in the province of British Columbia, Canada, that has this problem where landlords don't want to, quote unquote, do anything with their old bungalows because they're going to be torn down anyway, and it's a big waste of money. So do nothing more than you have to do. Outside of that, if you don't like it, you can move or deal with it yourself. So you deal with it yourself, but of course you don't get acknowledged with that from the other side of that long line of gangs, if you want to call it that, right? Why not? When you have a pack of people running together, they become a gang, okay? You know, and all they want to complain about are freaking flies and moths. My God, I ordered freaking something from Canadian Superstore, had it delivered today. Did you bring those boxes inside? God forbid if you did. I told Andre, don't bring those boxes inside because I'm too scared to have more moths getting into the house because you know it's going to be a fucking heat score, right? Right? You know? And I'm ragging on him. Go kill flies. Catch the flies. You know what I'm saying? Like, fuck, man. It's hot up here. I got, you know, right? These landlords, you know, they you know, when I go to this acorn meeting and those kind of things, they have people talk, right? And, you know, for some of these people that are being harassed by their landlords, because they want to do the renovic or they just want to kick the tenant out so they can triple the rent, double the rent, or whatever it is for the next tenants, because, you know, they can do that. I got to, right? You know, they send in the goons, yeah, and, you know, the ex-cops, whatever, security guards, whatever, and they're, you know, they're very intimidating, and they go through the house, you know, like an apartment, and they see you have your little garbage can up by the sink, and there might be some garbage in it, and they'll write it in such a kind of way where it scandalizes you and smears you, and it gives them a right to now, quote unquote, give you an eviction notice because somehow you're not meeting the whatever criteria or whatever people try and throw at you, right? To control you, right? Or to get what they want, and in that situation they'd want to evict the old tenant so they can rent it to a new tenant and triple and double the rent, right? And government ain't doing shit about that. No. And these social workers are the same way, right? You trivializing rats and freaking mice and, you know, that kind of shit, right? You know, you don't care about the back door being broken for like over a year. I couldn't use it. It just got to the point, people, where I couldn't freaking use it, so I blocked it off. And with Marcane throwing out my shit, And like I said, I was still doing a bit of food prep in those days. I was finishing up, right? And it kept the wind out. Literally, it kept the fucking wind out. It kept out the freaking creeps, right? You know what I'm saying? And they want to, you know, and like, what if I lived in an apartment? Where's the 2 exits? There'd only be one. There'd only be 1 exit. You know what I'm saying? If I'm living on the 3rd floor, what you gonna say? Well, where's the window? Right? Oh, where's the window? Well, I don't know. I live on the 3rd floor. I live on the 16th floor. What window are you talking about as a fire exit? I'm going to need a pretty long ass rope if it's 16 feet or 16 floors, right? Or 6 floors up. 6 floor. They're building buildings up here, 6 floors up. That's a long ass freaking rope to get down when the building catches on fire. And they only got 1 fire exit. So what makes it okay for them to have 1 fire exit with no access to absolutely no windows, except for being 6 floors up, right? Never mind having to go down the hall and a whole bunch of stairs, because you know by that time the elevator will probably be shut down, right? So it's not like you can go down the elevator, right? And for me, I gotta keep. I moved that dollhouse from here. Is that up here, right? Because you know, and I put it there by the back door, and we didn't take it down that day, right? And I like, oh my God, you know, I'm just gonna leave it there. And when social worker comes, you know, hopefully she'll realize that it's a playhouse and that I'm not leaving it there, right? She comes, yada yada, and then she goes, oh, by the way, and that's when she brought me that other woman, a support woman, and she introduced me to that woman, and then she stood there and she says, oh, by the way, you know, I have to remind you not to have that there, and I'm to keep, you know, for fire exit, and I'm like, well, you do realize that's a playhouse, right? I just moved it last night from over here, and I put it over there. It's big and bulky, and you know, I didn't want to struggle down the stairs at 9 o'clock at night or 8 o'clock or whatever. You know, I was tired. You know, it will be going down today after you're gone. Like what? Right? Are they gonna? What are they gonna do when there's a family on the 6th floor in a building with 1 exit? Huh? Well, and say what? You can't have something. You can't have your shoes by the door. Right? You know, they even wanted me to get rid of my freaking shoes at one point. Where am I supposed to put the fucking shoes? Sorry, boo-boo shoes. So, you know, like, gotta be careful with this shit, because it is like the Twilight Zone. It's like mixing up the jars. Apparently, I don't know if I already mentioned this on my video, or what Andre said, that I got canning jars in the shed outside. Oh my God. So what? You telling me they froze when it was freezing outside? Are you telling me that they're heating up when it's hot outside and I don't even know that they're outside? And I don't even know what's outside when it comes to anything, really, when my son did what he did in terms of right? Do they care about that? I'm still playing catch up with that shit. Right? They don't care, right? Because if they did, they wouldn't write what they wrote, which I'm going to read. Because, you know, it's not fair. It's not, people. It's not. Okay? You seen me dig in the dirt a little bit. I didn't carry it out. I just did the work fast, focused, right? And you seen the end result. If I wish I would have had more scraps. And I did. I just didn't have time to chop them all up and, you know, just whatever. And in terms of table scraps, like I got some old oranges. I just bought a brand new bag. To hell with the old oranges. You know, chop them all up, and, you know, for the next, to just feed the dirt, and, you know, a little bit of newspaper, and, you know, something this, and doesn't matter if it's a little moldy. It's okay. You know, it's dig it into the worms love it. Right? You know what I'm saying? That's what enriches, right? And then, you know, put a whole bunch of cardboard boxes down, and now I'm either gonna put straw on top, and just leave the straw. But those other big leaf plants, they're so aggressive. I kind of want to just lay down fabric, landscaping fabric, to try and just keep them at bay for as long as I can, and then maybe throw on some hay or something or whatever on top of the land. It's either going to stay like that and right? And the weeds will grow and just morning glory will call, or just throw on some hay, and then what happens is the hay will start to grow, and then it will dig into the landscaping fabric and bust through and start rooting into the ground, which is problematic. So, you know, it might be better just to take some hay, spread it over the, it would be honestly, to take some hay, which I have, and I need to use it up, onto the cardboard, right? To just give it, you know, a layer of maybe 3 inches. It will compact down. And then put on your fabric, landscaping fabric, to insulate it. And then leave it for a year or two. Yeah. And just pick around the weeds that are coming up and just, you know, whatever. The maintenance on it will be so much better. And then by the time, assuming that this house is still standing, which it probably will be, the dirt will be enriched, right? So do I get acknowledged for that, or do I get singled out for having a rotten tomato on my counter that liquefied, where it was just kind of, you know, put there beside the stove, and, you know, it got blended in with other things, and, you know, and blah. And, I mean, yesterday it was fine, and today it liquefied, because that's what happens to these vegetables these days. You know what I'm saying? Or fruit or whatever. You know, you don't know when they're going to liquefy. And, you know, now mind you, upstairs for me is hotter, but besides that point, and, you know, that's what they want to focus on. Moldy food. Yeah, okay. Moldy food. Well, that moldy food feeds the dirt, being that I paid for it. You know how I justify throwing that shit out? When I pay for it, I pay good money, and I either don't get a chance to cook it because I'm working, and by the time, you know, I'm done working, I'm too tired to start putting in a 5-hour shift in the kitchen just to do this, and then have to do freaking dishes and yada yada yada. So sometimes these things don't make it. Or I'll buy a papaya. I'll pay $7 for a papaya, buy it specifically for amari. I try and, you know, I put it in a bag to try to ripen it that way, and that didn't work. I tried to move it over there, hoping that it would ripen properly, and still molding. You know, I'd put it over there in a different spot, hoping that, you know, that area, it would, right, and they're molding. So I don't even buy papaya anymore. It's a waste of freaking money. Like, seriously, right? So what, you gonna come into my house, I'm trying to ripen a papaya for amari, spend good money for papaya, and the damn thing is molding, and you happen to see a little bit of mold on it, and you want to write in that I'm a problem, and that I need to be under probation for that? Monitored for that? I've had 9 compost boxes on this property over a period of 15 years. And yeah, you feed them food scraps, rotten or otherwise, okay? Worms don't care, okay? So when I chuck it out, I say, well, at least I'm making good dirt. At least I'm feeding the worms. Because I don't like wasting money, and that's why I'm kind of like glad that Andre's gotten a little older now, and he's, you know, he's a little more independent, and, you know, he can run off and go buy carrots and or whatever, and that's the way we're going to try and do it, right? You know, hit up those sales, you know, when you can get them 70 cents each when it comes to a freaking pepper or a jumbo carrot or something like that. I bought that stuff, and that stuff is still sitting downstairs. I haven't even had a chance to cook with it yet, people. I've been doing laundry, and because it's so hot up here, and I'm already leaking and whatever, and, you know, it gets heaty, you know? It's awful. So I've been busy. Just... Okay. So, I don't know. This is a sign-off thing. I'm not, right? They've closed the intake part of their mission, have put their foot down, and basically said it's routine. We're not letting you go. Because I was cracking jokes with the social worker with the bad marriage. when do we get to have a divorce? Right? Right? You know what I mean? I'm getting tired of being the third wheel because she was married, right? You know, let me just give me a second. Okay, so let's just get on track with the, you know, the I's dotted and the T's crossed. So it started in September of 20, and keep in mind, okay, what's going on with my eye. Okay, so I have a social worker that sits in an office, never gets to interact with their clientele outside of on a phone and through paperwork. Ooh, I'd like to meet the kids. So I invite her in the house. Next thing you know it, I got a whole band of social workers plotting and scheming behind my back how to help my family, basically. Now, am I being sarcastic? Probably, because I don't like being insulted or taken advantage of, especially when I'm probably at my most vulnerable in light of what's going on with my quote-unquote one eye. And when I talk to you, I really should put on an eye patch so that you get a real full understanding of what I'm having to deal with on a daily basis with that daily grind with a one eye that's working at a 15% capacity, okay? All right, so with that said, right, so the band of social workers showed up in September. My basement gets flooded out with intent in November. My son gets basically evicted with get out everything, take out everything. So that in itself was an eviction, because where was he supposed to take it and then move back in after it took almost a month to do what they did downstairs, okay? Because it was just kind of off the side when they weren't busy doing something else. It wasn't like they came in and did a 3-day job, right? Okay. So with that said, right, and of course I was booked for surgery in January, and that's when my son basically finally moved out by the 8th of January with every, you know, in other words, I'm gone. I'm, you know, whatever mess he left behind, I had to deal with it. And then the guys came, and of course I had surgery on January 12th, right? And what was I doing 2 days after surgery? I was downstairs cleaning up mouse shit in the laundry room, because I had to get a handle on shit before it got too crazy, because it was already crazy, right? And being that I couldn't do anything on the inside of the basement because the guys were coming in to start ripping up the floors and the carpet or whatever, the carpet and shit, and right? You know, all I got stuck with was the laundry room. So, you know, I'm trying to get ahead of the game, not behind the game. So I did what I could, all right, whatever. You know, I went for my eye checkups and the pressure was down. It was 12, it was 15 or whatever. Okay. And then, so I guess you could say the surgery, quote unquote, was successful, even though it was kind of like a Frankenstein surgery. But besides that point, you know, but I've been struggling with it ever since, and I do regret doing it because it's made my eyes worse in a very short period of time. Oh, can I still see? Yeah, I can to one degree or another, but it's a real struggle because things have gotten blurrier. And not only that, but, you know, with this, the eye not adapting very quickly with different light spectrums, I'm getting, you know, colors of blue, hey, like that, you know, looking through a glass stained window that's either blue or red or whatever, and that throws me off. And just, okay, so with that said, right, you know, and they got me, these social workers, through this whole process, they got me running with fear because, you know, God forbid if I don't leave that walkway open in terms of the back door, because I don't live on a 6-story building with a 1-door exit. That's not my problem, right? I mean, like, are they going to demand the same shit of them? Where's the window? Do you have a rope long enough to get down 6 stories? Because that's what we expected from Judy Chorney and her window, which is over there, and they weren't even satisfied with that window. And that window over there is the safest window to get out of when it comes to distance and what's at the bottom of it when it comes to soft landing, right? So I'd hate to see what they do with somebody on the 6th floor with a one exit with the elevator dead, not working. Yeah, okay. And a whole bunch of people running down the stairs, assuming that they can even go down the stairs depending on where the stupid fire is in that building. Okay, so when they say it's 1984, they're not kidding, because you know they okay, so yeah. So you know, and now we're at basically where they came in, let us help you, let us bring in supports. Well, the support that you brought in came in with the clipboard for an hour, not once wrote anything on that clipboard, but made sure to tell me that whatever she was going to write, she was going to do it in the privacy of her office, that would go into a file that I couldn't access unless I had to go through Freedom of Information. So therefore, she could write anything, say anything, and being that she didn't come last time, which was just, a couple days ago, you think she's going to write something good about me now? Oh, well, she was complaining that she didn't like me coming by every week. Huh. Yeah. I had to quit. I'm not going to be around somebody that doesn't, quote-unquote, like me. No, it's not that I didn't like her. It's just, you know, I had you come to help me with the housing problem, to document, to be a witness, to advocate, to be there for me and fight it in court, if and when it should go to court, because my landlords are running me out of this house, while the social workers aren't really making it any easier for me either to make that happen, which tells me everybody within those gangs, the gangs of social workers, the gangs of the landlords, you know, they want to house immigrants to one degree or another with full subsidies to pay into that rent gouging. So the kickbacks somehow, right? Because there's going to be kickbacks with the social services with my family. They get to keep their portfolio open with the freaking government, federal and provincial, with Amari's file. You know, you come in and they're, what? So what other support have they given me, people? They got me on lockdown. They got me on probation where I have to check in, where they come and check in, right? Not once, not twice, but perpetually. And they plan on keeping doing it right up until the bitter end where I can't see. And with their solution is to simply take Amari and pluck him out of the house and put him somewhere else. So my kids have to hurry up, quick, you know, because, you know, the clock is ticking on this file here. So get your security check in, do this, do that. Let's see if they even qualify to take Amari, being that their places are smaller than this place. And if they take Amari, what happens to Andre? You know what they say? Well, Andre can make his own decisions. So, right? But yet you wrote in here that he has to do this and this, but yet Andre can make his own decisions as they're imploding the house and not keeping Amari in the house. As they're telling Andre that he shouldn't care about Amari in terms of wanting to, you know, continue to help and look after him and be there for him. Amari is on the floor right now next to Andre as Andre's on his computer, because I had to take the cushions off the couch, wipe shit down because, you know, he leaks and whatever, air dry it, put some cushions back on or whatever. And if you notice, they're quiet and they're happy. But no, you got to take Amari out. Tell Andre he can go and do whatever he wants when he wants, as long as he takes an online program to get his GED, because we said so. Yeah. Well, not every kid is a brainiac. What's going to happen when Andre turns 16 and start working more with his uncle to get that hands-on experience with somebody that has actual patience for him? Are they going to say, no, he can't do that? Because now Marina's looking after Amari?
don't ask me where I'm going to be because everybody abandoned me in the house. Basically. Right? And yeah. What are they going to expect from Marina? Or Tisha, for that matter. Because they got them doing the security checks. Because if they don't do the security checks and something quote-unquote happens, whatever that may be, could be just one fly that broke the fly swatter's handle. You know, the straw that broke the camel's back. It's just going to be something as asinine as a fly. Like I said, forget about the rats, forget about the mice, forget about the fact that I'm having to rewash, clean up the same old mouse shit, catch the same old mice, throw them in the garbage, right, before they decompose and attract flies or whatever, or die in the walls for that matter, right? Who cares about that? Clearly not social services, because then they'd have to do something about the landlords. And being that they don't want to stand up against the landlords, and they're acting like the landlords themselves, because the landlords are doing it to their tenants to kick out the older tenants that pay less rent so they can up the ante immediately after the tenant leaves and double or triple the rent for the new tenants, to which many of those tenants are subsidized immigrants. Guaranteed paycheck. Better than a welfare check. Yeah. Yeah. And it's okay for them to live on the 6th floor. Yeah. With a one door exit. Where I'm being harassed over a broken window. As if I don't like opening that door, because I do. I just couldn't at that time. And yeah, when I'm moving things around, things pile up in that corner, like that playhouse. It didn't warrant you reminding me that it shouldn't be there, because clearly I wouldn't leave a playhouse there. Especially when the patrol, what is that called? The control patrol is on the watch. I have to remind you, you can't keep that there. Oh, I know that. I just moved it there last night. I got a little tired. I didn't want to take it down the stairs in the dark, and I sure in the hell didn't want to do it first thing in the morning. So I thought I'd do it after you leave, but thank you for reminding me that I'm a shithead and that I don't know what I'm doing. And that's the point of this video. You know, they insult you in a nice kind of way. Smile up in your face, say, oh, I really like you, that support worker. Oh, the social worker really likes you, you know, she's your fan, right? And I'm like, oh, whatever, you know, as if I'm what? Did I want all that attention from them all these years because I had Andre over a loose screw? Did I ask them to come to my house over a loose screw? No, but they came. So, you know, like, I'll never get over that loose screw. Never. On that rail? Okay, I don't think I can read this. I'll try. So you see where I'm going, right? So where I'm at with my eye right now, whatever he did was a waste of time. I got injured with it, like anything that he does. Nothing works. And that's the problem, because it's so easy for these guys that do this stuff to you and will say, well, we already knew that that was more than likely going to happen because we, quote unquote, can't stop glaucoma from progressing. We can only slow it down. Yeah, sure, you slowed it down. He did the surgery. The last time I went to see him, last 2 times I went to see him, and that was over a month and a half ago. First the pressure was 12, 15, whatever, and then it jumped up to 21. He did the surgery because it was at 21. But for whatever reason, it jumped back up. And then when I said, well, gee, isn't that what we just did the surgery for? Was to stop that from happening? Oh, well, yeah, well, you know, there's little room for wiggle room in there, and, you know, we're not going to worry about it right now. Well, then why the hell did I have the surgery before? Because it was at 21. Oh, because it was creeping up. It was going to go back up to 50 psi. Yeah, okay, whatever. Whatever. And now I can barely see anything. Well, I can see, but it makes me ill. Let's put it that way. Because it's too much on the brain to concentrate, right? Because it's almost like I have to think my eye to work now. It's not that my eye works, you know, when you have good eyes, you don't think, right? Your eye works and you take it for granted. When you get to my point, you have to think, okay, eye, you're going to work. You're going to follow my instructions. It's coming from this part of my brain, right? It's going, you know what I'm saying? You do what the brain tells you to do. And then you really have to just like focus and find it and make your brain think. Okay, so let's just let my brain think, because this to me is insulting, because it's not fair. You come, you say you want to help. Okay, and then the help that you give me isn't practical, and it was actually misleading because you knew I was having a lot of issues with the landlord, and the only reason I agreed to that quote-unquote support worker was to have a witness to document so that if and when it went to court, I wasn't standing there by myself like a freaking idiot fighting the beast, because it's not even the landlord as it is the system. And that's the problem. The landlords, they know the system is against the public. The peons, right? The paupers, the trash, whatever they want to label us as, because we're just the quote-unquote lowly renters that are nothing but less than pawns on a chessboard, okay, in terms of a quote-unquote commodity. They can keep us if they want, or they can quickly get rid of us as fast as they want in order to capitalize on that spot that they kicked you out of, right? All right, so housing. Parents' needs. Okay. Another reason to get duty counsel. I'm going to get some duty counsel on this stuff, because it's struggle to read it, right? And, you know, and again, I for all I know, I am kind of signing away Amari before it even gets to that point, because they already got me on lockdown, and they already said they're going to take him away. It's just a matter of when my eye goes at this point, despite what they're writing. They're only justifying keeping the file open by what they write on behalf of not being able to see. Even though much of what they write, in my opinion, as a defendant, is, one, a smear campaign. It's unrealistic to castrate me over flies and moths when I'm not the only one in the freaking world that has that problem, never mind in the province of British Columbia, Canada. As well as if I lived in a 6-story new luxury quote-unquote condo that's being built with my 2 grandkids, what you gonna tell me? I need a 6-story long rope to get Amari out the freaking window, and if I can't provide that safely, somehow I don't qualify to keep my grandson, because also I'm missing one exit, considering from where I came from when I was required to have 2. Why do I have to have 2 here, but I'm allowed to get away with 1 there in that 6-story building? That's what I mean by, like, unreasonable. Right? For the family home, so this is housing, parents' needs. Needs. Okay? For the family home to be in a safe condition for the children. So right off the hop, There is no history of either of them being injured under my care. And Andre's been with me since he's been 3.5. And Amari's been with me since he's been 7 months. Very rarely does Amari ever get sick in terms of a cold or something like that. Once or twice a year for a day or two. Only once did he get the puking flu, and that came from Andre being at Tisha's house at some birthday party, and he brought it home. And that's a bacteria, and that's common, right, among kids or anybody. If you go, okay, we talked about that, right? Yeah, so if my home was unsafe, you think there would have been a whole lot of injuries in there and mishaps along the way, considering all things said. Or did it just suddenly become unsafe? Because more things were being thrown out for whatever reason, whether it was being thrown out in the yard and I had to bring it in, or thrown out from the basement and I had to bring it in, but I couldn't take it downstairs, and I couldn't take it into the shed because that shit was being piled up in there from down or whatever, and then my son threw out shit and put his shit in there, which brought more shit in, okay? So, but nobody got hurt. Where we got hurt was people pillaging our stuff, but nobody cared about that. Clearly not the social workers, right? In terms of, you know, the illegal act of pillaging things that don't belong to you. Or how about paying for things that you shouldn't have to, that $21.50 when everything was wiped out of the yard. Yeah. Not including what I paid my son. You can tack on another $1,500 after it was all said and done. And for what? To still do extreme yard maintenance with barely anything. Okay. So still home. For the family home to be in a safe condition for the children. Where's the history of the children being injured in a home that hasn't been safe? There is no history of that. Okay? But the way they make it sound like is there is. A loose screw on a rail doesn't warrant being unsafe, but they came for that one time. All right, let's just read. The home will have clear walkways which allow space for medical equipment like a wheelchair and or emergency gurney. So a wheelchair isn't necessarily a medical equipment. The one that we had was kind of broken. It came in broken with the clip. So, you know, and it wasn't something that it sat there. He used it off and on a little bit. We never moved it around, right? So what are they saying? That if you don't live in a monster home, never mind a 6-story little condo, right? That's, well, you couldn't live in a 6-story little condo with all this equipment that they want, that they say that you have to use now. Okay? Just think about it, all right? When they gave me the wheelchair, they said it was mine. But it was never mine. It was just a means to shuffle money in terms of the province under that financial department through the medical of this covered we'll say 3/4 of the dollar amount on the wheelchair. And then they used my social insurance number, my low income, to submit an application to the Shriners Club or the Variety Club to get a donation to pay for the wheelchair, as I'm being told that it's my wheelchair. Okay. So the wheelchair comes, we used it a little while, but that thing would stick. It would be hard to get them out, because it came in broken. They say they're new, but I don't think so, being that there was a problem with that clip, right? The kids were jumping all over it, whatever. It ended up, parts of it were bending. So anyway, it came time to get them a new chair. So that's what that thing is downstairs, which is like humongous, literally. It looks like a transformer. Yeah, like an extraterrestrial transformer in terms of how big it is. But before I could get that, I was required to give back the wheelchair. I was obligated to give back the wheelchair and the tomato chair before I could get the stroller and this other thing that I have downstairs. Okay? And they did. They used my social insurance number to fundraise for both of them to finish off paying the bill. So they're recycling this equipment, misleading the caregivers to say that they're yours, but expecting you to upgrade when the time comes and give, right? I'm just saying, right? And now they're trying to say, I need to bring this thing upstairs, get rid of everything, basically, to be able to move it around. Because we don't have a wheelchair. We chose that one downstairs and we chose a stroller. We were only allowed to choose 2 things. And even if we had a wheelchair, I never took it out. I didn't want to get it dirty. I didn't want to take out the freaking wheelchair, wheel it around in public on spit and crap on the ground and food and shit and freaking car oil and just wherever, because rolling around out in the streets, and then bring it in and start wheeling it around the house with grit and God, all that crap. No, I didn't want to do that, so the wheelchair stayed here. And then he outgrew it. After the kids climbed all over it, Kyrie and a little AMA. And now we've got that other thing that is humongous. And they expect me to get rid of everything, live in an empty house, in order to put him in it. And I suppose wheel him around, even though I'd never wheel it around. And I've talked to Andre, we need, no, he's too big. So right there, you get shot in the foot as a caregiver, and if you don't have the space, or if you're not willing to empty out your freaking space to bring in the quote-unquote equipment that you pay for in a roundabout way with your social insurance number, right? I suppose, if I had a high income, I'd have to pay I don't think they would fundraise if my income was $100,000 a year. Part of it would still be covered by BC Medical, but the other 1/4 or 1/3, they'd probably have to, like my son. If my son was looking after Amari, he makes $100,000 a year, he'd probably have to top off versus go to the Variety Club like I do. But then he would still be expected to give back the equipment after he finished using it because Amari outgrew it and needed other equipment. that's going to come back even 10 times bigger. And then in comes the social workers. He's 15 years old, and clearly you don't have enough space. But don't worry about it, because we don't do jack shit about the housing market. That's not our department. And if you got problems with mice, like your mother had problems with mice, well, don't worry about that. We will ignore that, because that's not an issue that we want to rock a boat on, because then we'd have to challenge the landlords to be ethical and to provide proper housing for their tenants. But we will pick on the fucking fly, because it was your mother who created the fly. Don't you remember, Mr. Chorney? Who created the fly, Mr. Chorney? Oh, that was your mom. Judy Chorney. It's on record. Okay, so we already know that they're planning on taking him away by saying, let us help you. I'm now saying build the safety nets on the inside, because that's when you say let us help you, that's what I would think. In other words, maybe some in-home care where somebody can help me come sort things out, do laundry, help me with Amari if I need that help, whatever, give him a bath, versus whatever, right? How we, just whatever, right? But no, that's not what they're doing. No, they're planning on taking Amari out, because that's the easy route, because that's the only thing that department, when it comes to child protection, does. Well, Andre can just go where he wants. He can go live with his aunt, he can go live with his uncle, he can go live with his little friend, or he can stay with me. It's up to him. But he's still required to take online distant learning. Yeah. Okay. And go to a rec center, based on what they said here. He's required to go to a rec center. Yeah, okay. Because for some reason, quote unquote, I'm depriving him. So by overriding me and say, well, we're not like your Nana, we're just going to tell you, you have to go, right? We'll get to that sooner or later. I think what I'm going to do is, because I'm talking too much, right? I'm just going to read the one page. There's one page. I don't know how many pages there is. 2 page, 3 page. Oh my God. 4 page. Yeah, there's 4 pages. Like I said, what's my line of defense? The only thing that I can do outside of signing it and waiting for the axe to fall with no mercy, as everybody's lying up in my face saying, no, can't you see, we're drooling mercy, it's dripping out of our mouths, we're only doing it because we care, we're only doing it because we're trying to help, we're only doing it because that's what we're told to do, so we don't have a choice, but we still feel sorry for you, oh, whatever. Right, yeah, okay. Alright, so, this is the eyes. I wonder what would happen if I turned on a light. Don't forget, these are glasses since 2007, right? But, okay. Okay. So we'll just go back to the top. The home will have clear walkways. We already talked about that. Which allow space for medical equipment. A wheelchair is not medical equipment. A hospital bed with an IV stand, a heart monitor, yada yada yada, is, in my mind, is medical equipment. A wheelchair is a wheelchair. How you choose to use the wheelchair is your business. If you want to take that wheelchair, run around out in public, all over the place, on the cement, on the road, in this building, wherever, and then come home and start wheeling that wheelchair, even if you spray off the freaking tires, as if, because water is a conductor to spread germs, and then you start wheeling around in your house just because it's a quote-unquote medical device. No. And as for the gurney, it's easy to take a person out in a hammock, and I've had gurneys in this house before with the same situation, so, you know, that, and then for all of a sudden after, who's the gurney for? Well, maybe for me? Yeah, well, I thought you're child protection. You don't care about me. You don't care if I lose the house. You don't care if I lose my grandkids. You don't care if my family is in constant freaking kerfuffle with that cortisol going in their brain because you're using Amari as a tool to either you take him or he's going in foster care because we're done with your mom. It says right here. The creator of the fly. We hate that bitch because she created the fly. Yeah, we need to take her out and maybe all her little fucking, boo-boo, prodigies, all those little flies flying around the planet, maybe they'll all die at one time if you take out the queen. Just take out the queen and all the flies will die. We'll get rid of the problem. The eyes are not working. Yeah, the lighting is starting to change. It's starting to get darker too. That's how sensitive my eyes are. Yeah, I notice it. I told that social worker we already talked about the gurney. If they can take Shmai's dead body out in a hammock and play her off as being alive while they did it, just so that they can hide a perfusion machine, if an emergency happened and they couldn't get a gurney in for whatever strange reason, which I'm pretty sure they could if they wanted to, they could take a body out in a hammock. And if it's Amari, you can carry out Amari. And if it's a fire and a real emergency, they're not coming in with no fucking gurney, okay? They're coming in, they're grabbing you, and if they have to, they will drag your ass out, okay? That's that 1984. So I'm under probation with that. That's very powerful words. And I don't live up to their expectations. And that's why they're planning to take him out. And I can tell you right now, Marcane won't qualify with his little 2-bedroom basement suite. Unless, of course, he wants to get rid of his shit, too. Tisha won't qualify in her 2-bedroom apartment suite. Unless she's willing to get rid of her shit. And even then, there's going to be 3 extra kids in a 2-bedroom apartment as if they're going to let Amari be there for any length of time. Right? And, right? Well, this house is, what, in chaos? In literal chaos? Andre's dream coming to fruition? Blow up the building over there, start the building and blow it up over there, have this building freaking crumbling where we're kind of hiding out in between the rubble while Andre's like sneaking out to go look for supplies because my food prep got wiped out along with everything else? Yeah, okay. It sounds a little dramatic, but that's basically what's happening here. We're just putting visualization to it. Huh? And he had that dream in October. Same time I had that dream it was around in October. They showed up in September, and by October, Andre and I were having freaking nightmares. Yeah, okay. That's helpful. And then you go to the other side, and it says, strategies, including persons responsible. What I read was honestly, I don't think I know this word. indict in I don't even know how to pronounce it. Indictators. I know the word, but I don't know how to explain it. It's like the indication. These are the indications. Indictators. This is the highlight, the indication. This is what you got to focus on, right? Yeah, okay. And then strategies, including persons, responsibilities. And then they've got a review date here, which we'll get to in a minute. All right, so in regards to the gurney and the medical equipment and the space, Judy will continue working with the FEP worker to assist with organization. Well, first of all, I think that was that support worker. That's not why I had her come here, people. She didn't help me organize nothing. She wanted to sit down and talk with a clipboard that she never wrote in, and then told me not to worry about what she was going to write when she left. That it would be all good, because she wasn't out to get me. That's basically what it was boiling down to. As she was reminiscing about her daughter, trying to provoke me to think about Shmei, and to see what my reactions would be around that. There was nothing in there to organize, and when I did have her come, want her to come, called her on it, said, yeah, okay, you need to come and help me wash drawers so that I can organize, because that's what I need to do, not chat, right? Not that because I can chat on YouTube, for fuck's sake, sorry, boo-boo sakes, right? I can go next door and chat to myself. And she didn't come. She didn't come and help. So, but I'm required to do that. And then the review date is October 15th. So you're going to follow up, and I'll get a great big letter F. I failed. I failed. Because I probably won't have it all organized by October because it's just too much. Right? In terms of everything that I have to wash. I did like 2-3 loads of laundry this morning. Right? You know what I'm saying? And then I went outside and did that. Right? I got chicken liver I have to cook up, but I'm doing this first. I gotta do dishes. I gotta gather up the freaking recycle and probably get the bag of garbage out that's sitting there that's starting to fill up because it's attracting flies, God forbid. I'm scared of fucking flies. Sorry, boo-boo flies. Literally, I'm scared of freaking boo-boo flies. I told Andre, don't bring those stupid boxes in from Canadian Superstore. I'm afraid to have moths infiltrate the house again because they're going to run around accusing me of this and accusing me of that, and for what? So they can justify taking Amari and say, that's how we helped you? Yeah, okay. Okay. The next one down, there will be 2 clear exits in the home. Well, what if I lived on it? Okay, I'm going to move. I'm going to take this with me, and I'm going to get myself a little luxury condo on the 6th floor. I want to be close to that playground that's on the roof so that I can go have my grandkids play on my outside play equipment that was robbed from my yard because you know it went on the roof. Because that's where they're putting their playgrounds now, on these buildings that they're building. And they need play equipment. And nothing like good old Tiny Tyke, sturdy as a rock, can take the sun, can be outside for years and years and years and years and years, never freaking warps. That's what they took and had my son load up on a freaking disposable bin and rolled off with it as they made me pay for it. Well, I'm moving back. I'm moving up. I want to go play on my freaking... I found it. I did a Google search. I seen it for myself. I know exactly where those play equipment is. So you're going to tell me all of a sudden I don't qualify to have my grandkids because I'm on the 6th floor so I can be close to the freaking playground and play on my play equipment that I pay to freaking get thrown away for whatever strange reason so somebody else can get freaking rich? Yeah, right. And tell me it's not good enough because there's only one walkway out the door, like one door to get out. There will be 2. But I don't live I live in a basement suite. I don't have 2 clear exits. Well, yeah, I suppose you could clear out the window. Yeah, but I live in a 6-story building with 1 exit, and I'm on the 6th floor. Well, I guess that's okay. We'll just not have this, what Miss Chorney has to live by, applicable to you. Okay, I'm just showing you the hypocrisy around it. Okay? Because that's wrong. Especially when I couldn't even open that door. And as soon as I got it opened, cleared out, right? Before the glass was even fixed and taped back in and screwed in and all that crap, somebody moved that door, took it off its frame, came in and creeped my house at 4 o'clock in the morning, and that was because of the social workers. What if we would have gotten murdered that night? Oh, you're going to blame me? Yeah, right. The social worker will continue. Oh, the social worker. That's the strategy. The probation worker. The probation worker. Not a social worker, the probation officer. Okay? The probation officer will continue to complete regular home visits. Oh, you have a playhouse there. Well, that's not supposed to be there. It's my job to tell you that because that area is supposed to be cleared out. Okay, I already know that. You only had Andre and I running like scared ants when you came in here and said you got 3 hours to clear out that walkway because if you don't, we're coming in and we're going to take Amari. Do you remember that video, people? Right? And what? You put fear in Andre. And we're putting all that shit out in the porch that ended up getting rained on because the porch is freaking leaking all the time. And half of it got ruined. And for what? For somebody to take the frame off the door and sneak their ass in. Okay. Okay. And you're going to come now that the door has been taped back up and screwed up and somewhat functional, and you're going to keep me on my toes. Right? Scared to live in my own house. Right? Even though you already got it mapped out. You already know what you're going to freaking do. Been there, done that. Seen it with Andre. Went through it with Andre. That's what Andre said today. It's doing the same damn shit that they did with him when he was little. He remembers. They don't even have a follow-up date on it. That's why it's called a routine file. Next line down with the indicators. There will be no moldy food, moldy dishes, flies, etc. Well, first of all, I do a lot of canning. When they were coming around, I was in canning mode. I was canning meat. I had jars, fish. I don't know what the hell I was canning. Chicken feet broth. Okay? I was canning all that crap. Right? And you're going to get flies. You're going to get flies any time of the year. It doesn't matter. Right? And if you got dirty diapers in the house, even if you put them outside by the door or whatever, you know, or just whatever. It's just a fact of life, people. As for moldy food, well, take it up with the grocery stores. I can't even buy a papaya for my grandson. Literally, I have bought like 4 or 5 papayas trying to ripen them in the house, and it is impossible because they start to mold within a couple of days. And you're thinking, oh, I'll just give them a couple of more days and cut off the mold. And they're still not freaking ripening properly. Bananas, you know, they don't last that long. No, I don't throw them away right away because I'm like, oh, I'm going to make banana cake. Oh, I'm going to make banana cake. But I end up forgetting about the banana cake because I'm too busy doing laundry, this, that, and everything else. So they sit on my counter in a bowl. And, you know, maybe, you know how bananas can get after a while, right? And when you're making banana cake, you kind of want them old and mushy and stuff. But it gets a point where even then they become compost. Sometimes I don't have time. I don't have time to make banana cake. I wish I could. But, you know, I got to do that extreme yard work, so I just throw it into the compost and feed the dirt. Oh, that's a crime. If I got a tomato sitting on my counter and it starts to go moldy within 2 days of being in the house, and I just bought it, right? You know, or maybe one got moved because something was, you know, doing, and we moved it to one side and it got forgotten about, and it sat there for a little while, and, you know, like I said, it would liquefy, right? It's not because we're negligent and we go around leaving freaking moldy food just in the house because that's what we like to do. That's bullshit. That's bullshit. What she's writing is bullshit because that food went to the compost and fed the worms. Okay? If it was meant to stay in the house because I'm so damn negligent, it would never have went into the compost. I would never have done what I did today, and I've been doing that shit for years. I have had 9 compost boxes on this freaking property doing 10 to 12 hours a day, 5 to 7 days a week, working in this yard, okay? Feeding the dirt. And they want to make it sound like I'm a retard. So they can come in and the social worker, the probation officer will continue to complete regular home visits. So now I got to hide the food. Even if I buy 2 tomatoes, because I'm trying to save on wastage, because being if I buy 5 tomatoes, 2 of them might mold within 2 to 4 days. And if the social worker happens to come around, oh, grab up all the food. Can't have no tomatoes sitting out on your counter. Get rid of them. Get rid of anything. Because if there's a little bit of mold on it or a dirty plate, I don't know where the moldy dish came from. Now, Andre likes to freaking not put his dishes away, and I come across that shit from time to time. And I'm always on his ass about it, right? But where they seen a freaking moldy plate, I don't know. Andre said that's not true. Because I told him, right? He said that's not true. And it's not true. There's never been a moldy plate out on my freaking counter. Ever. There's a compost bowl on the bottom on the floor, maybe by the sink or something like that, where as I'm doing dishes, Andre's making macaroni, he does, you know, put through the strainer, it gets in the sink, I'll throw it into the bowl, right? If I take out lettuce that's boiling in the fridge, I'll take it out, I'll put it in there, you know, cut out, right? And it fills up, and then, you know, Andre will take it out, and he'll take it into the don't even allow him to throw it in the green bins, people, because I need it for the freaking dirt. I may never plant anything what I worked on today because I'm losing my eyesight. And I don't think it's just simply me and my eyes. Honest to God, I don't. Because when you look at the timing of all this, right, it seems, and it's like that quickening, you know, like the quickening, right? You know, you've got, if it's not the landlord flaring up, throwing my shit around in the yard and threatening this and threatening that, it's the social workers. And now they're coming in with this crap. Well, you know, the eye doctor keeps fucking up, boobing up, right? You know, oh, let me help you, this will help. Well, you know what, now that we did the procedure, it didn't help, it just made it worse. Well, it's you, not my fault, it's all you, but let's do another procedure, and maybe that might help. Yeah, okay. Well, the social workers are chomping at the bit. Chomping at the bit. Protecting the landlords. Blaming it all on flies. And mold. Moldy vegetables. I didn't even buy any vegetables from Canadian Superstore. No! Because they go moldy! Real fucking fast! I avoided it. All I did was buy a freaking bag of potatoes. I almost brought some broccoli for $1.99 a pound, but then I reminded myself that I've got peppers downstairs and carrots and whatever else, and I gotta be smart and work with what I got first, and if I really want broccoli, I'm gonna just give Andre the cash, and he can go run to Lucky's and buy the broccoli there, which will probably be a better quality, and look for the good deals and maybe come back with something for 79 cents that if I was to buy it at Canadian Superstore, it would cost me $5. What would you rather pay, $5 or 70 cents on sale, and it's fresh? And maybe it won't mold so fast. Because these major food chains spraying Bill Gates crap on them to make things last forever like a bag of bread? Oh. Yeah, okay. I'm surprised they didn't fucking complain about moldy bread. Well, that's because bread doesn't mold no more. Why? Right? So are you going to go to court and yell at a lawyer about at a judge when the shit hits the fan? Well, you know, everything they wrote here, yada. Well, that doesn't matter. We don't care about the truth. What we care about is the mission. And that's basically what it's going to boil down to. They don't care about the fucking truth, boo-boo truth. They care about the freaking mission. They care about the end goal, right? They care about the provincial portfolio that's being transferred over when it comes to transferring funds, the slush funds, right? Like, just what I mean. It's insulting. It's like a smear campaign. There will be moldy food, moldy dishes, flies, etc. Okay. So I'm on probation for that. All right. So I gotta quit canning. I have to. I don't have a choice. Because if I'm canning and it takes 4 or 5 days to can something, and there's gonna be a residue of pots and pans, and it could be sugars, it could be blood, it could be wrappings, it could be apple cores, it could be freaking bones, it could be anything that would attract a freaking fly. I know you love that, Amari. You think it's funny, don't you? He loves it. Right? You know what I'm saying? Right? Anything. So before I attract those flies, never mind the diapers, just saying, I have to retire from cooking and anything of substance. I might be able to get away with little teeny weeny meals with very little produce available, because if that produce starts to mold before I get to eat it, or if I want to put it in the compost and I put it in a bowl and it sits in the bowl for a few days, that becomes a heat score. So they're living my life for me. Do you see how they're living my life for me? They're telling me that I can't do this. Why? Because you want a house with no food so you can come in and write in that there's no fucking food? Is that it? Items will be packed in a way that will not fall on top of Amari and Andre, should they be moving about. As if I don't baby-proof all the time. Andre, I'm just reading this one page, and I'm going to end this video and pick up later when I'm not so annoyed. Can you please just pipe it down for a minute? Okay? Again, there has been no mishaps. There is no history of mishaps based on that sentence. Okay? I like to keep my shit organized. Alright? I'm always on the watch for danger because I had 5 kids. And I had Uncle John. And I had Auntie Joan. And I have a disabled child. Okay? And I'm trying to educate Andre to watch out for those same things. Right? Hey! Shut up! I'm almost done. But they have to make it sound like I don't do that stuff. And that's what irks me. Because they come in and they see and they assume. And then they go in for the kill. They come in, they see, they assume, and then they go in for the kill. Kind of like the landlords that bring in the security guards to come do a whatever inside whatever, and then say you're evicted because you got a garbage can by your kitchen sink. And we don't like it. Same kind of freaking mentality. Exactly the same kind of mentality. So who's working for who? And how do they all benefit by imploding my family outside of breaking this house up into 2 separate suites so the landlords can milk it and maximize on every penny while the social workers, get 2 families to screw over? Let one survive and the other one is dog meat? Is that it? Keep the system, keep the beast fed, right? More probability to be able to target a family because they're living in a basement suite versus in a whole house. In terms of, well, you don't have enough of this and you don't have enough of that and you got a problem with mice. Judy had a problem with flies upstairs, sometimes downstairs, but you're the one with the problem with the mice, not Judy. We never cared about that. But now that we want to come after your kids, the problem is the mice, and being that you're not harassing your landlord and taking your landlord to court and holding your landlord to account to fix the mice problem, we're just going to come in and take the kids because of the freaking mice. And also too, you don't have enough space and you only got 1 exit. Yeah. Where's the consistency? Where is the game fair? In terms of when you start playing a game, there's usually rules to that game that everybody follows. They use the legislation to their advantage. And when you come back with the Criminal Code of Canada, which is over there, or this legislation, or that legislation, or that legislation, and you hold them to account, they come in with their funky-ass so-called lawyers and act like that whatever you had to say was complete asinine, retarded shit, and it didn't mean anything, even though it's right there in black and white in those legislations and under the Criminal Code of Canada, where it says that a public union sector government worker can't do this and this, or they will completely ignore it, and then they will override you and they'll still screw you over. Didn't take me long to get back up on that hamster wheel, now did it? No. Where are the rules fair? Where is the consistency? How is it that one person can have 1 exit and the other one is required to have 2? Huh? I'm right? How is it that you ignore the mice and the rats so it benefits the landlord, but you want to harass me over flies and have a probation officer come to my house and basically put fear into my grandkids, not including myself, so that you can torture us before you finally come in and take Amari? As you say, you will more than likely give him to either Tisha or Marcaine. But yet, we all know that if I don't qualify to house him based on what I'm just reading right now, never mind the eye, what's going to make them qualify? Because they've got the SOS charity so-called foster care program with their monster houses, seen it with Andre, needing high earning income kids to keep the file open. The doctor's happy with no disputing appointments. Like that full body x-ray that they want to do on Amari for bone density. And I'm going to, before I submit to that, I already talked to the doctor. We were going to let it slide, but clearly he's trying to undermine me. So I'm going to phone him up and have him call me, and I'm going to make him guarantee that he does the temperature checks the way I want them done, with me coming home doing temperature checks. And if Amari's temperature goes up, then it needs to be documented as a side effect. Because once that side effect happens, there will be consequences around it. And he may lose even more weight. And that's the point. Been there and done that too many times to count, with his temperature going up because of x-rays under a hip surveillance program that was a flop and a waste of the taxpayers' money that was proposed for a global study before it was meant for the benefit of the child, in my opinion, based on the results of it. And the, what is it called? The disadvantage around the procedures. 30% infection. That's a high percentage rate. 30% infection. 30% of having to redo surgery within less than a year. Right? You know what I'm saying? Just, and 30% and 30% and 10% and 1%, just whatever. It's just, and even then there were no guarantees. Absolutely no guarantees. As a matter of fact, you were more guaranteed to have problems based on all those percentages with all these things that could go wrong. There was a higher probability of something going wrong if they did that hip surgery compared to not doing the hip surgery. Because if you notice, do you ever hear him crying out in pain? He's moving around, he's doing what he does. They just don't like the way he looks, people, because he like this, right? But he does what, yesterday he was on his knees, standing up, bouncing around, and then he started his twitching, and I'm like, holy shit, on Amari, you're just on your knees, you're happy, he's laughing, he's grinning, and it's like, oh, like, there's no stopping him. There is no stopping him, and they don't like it. They wanted him like that for 8 months, and then come back in and cut him open so that, because it displaced or it got infected or who knows what. And then have him like that again for another, like that monkey in a tube. Yeah, okay. He's happy. Do they care about that? No. Shut up. Andre, I'm almost done. Andre, I'm almost done. Okay. And as for items and packed and all, I get a lot of laundry, a lot of pillows, a lot of blankets. I have to air dry, right? I gotta wash pillows again. I gotta wash like 3 to 4 pillows. And once I wash those 3 to 4 pillows, I'm putting pillows all over the place. You've seen a video where I had white hanging towels, white sheets, everything. It looked like a bunch of ghosts around me. All right? They fold them up, put them on a tail, piles up. Oh, okay. As if Amari is anywhere near the freaking table. I'm just using that as an example. Next one down. The home will be able to accommodate Andre and Amari's needs. Private space, medical equipment, specialized chairs. Again, he has no medical equipment. So why they keep typing in medical equipment is misleading, because the only thing that I can think of, people, is if this shit goes to court, because I'm telling you, I'm not just going to be a gullible nobody and just sign over Amari for a whole bunch of random tests because some crazy doctor just said, oh, finally I can do what I want. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how it affects Amari, because the taxpayers are paying for it and the government expects me to pump up that portfolio for whoever the hospital is making money, everybody making a money, and or whatever, and yeah, you know, like, and then yeah, then he will need medical equipment. As for the specialized chairs, except, well, if I had a bigger house, it would have been easier to integrate, well, that thing downstairs. But we're at the halfway mark downstairs. Halfway. I already told Andre, next couple, like within the week, when I get down there, I'm just going to make a path. I don't care if Amari's sitting in his wheelchair or if he's sitting in that chair. I'm at the point where I told Andre, you come downstairs and you will help me, and Amari will sit in either or chair. Because that's what I want to do. Not because I'm being told that I have to do it, because somehow I'm being negligent that I'm not. Okay? And sitting in a chair of any kind, doesn't matter if it's a wheelchair, a stroller, or that transformer tomato chair that came from some sci-fi movie, you know what I'm saying? He can only sit in them for so long, because that's not going to be good for him either, because he'll stiffen up. Where here, what he does between the couch and the floor is he moves at his leisure, and he positions his body where he's comfortable, and he's strong when he wants to move, because, you know, sometimes I lay on my back, right, and I hold him, hey, and he's like getting long, right, and he kicks, and because he wants to move, right, so everything is on his back, so he takes his leg, it's his left leg, that's the strong one, right, and he kicks, and he does this, arches his body, so he actually moves. He doesn't move like that. He's moving like that now. And I'm like, holy crumb, he almost flew out of my arms. Because we wanted to go on the floor. And he was determined, and he was, oh, and I'm like, oh, okay, clearly you're getting stronger. Clearly you're getting longer. But do these people care? No! Because he's doing it his way. And he ain't crying out in pain. As for Andre, privacy, he has a bathroom. You can go down the hall. If he goes into the bedroom sometimes, throws things around, right? Changes his clothes and throws his I go in there and I find he's been digging and got clothes over here and clothes over there, and right? You know what I'm saying? I'm doing down wherever I'm in. It got all kinds of privacy, right? I don't have that problem with Andre. I never had that problem with Andre in terms of like anything that's inappropriate, right? So for them to suggest that that's an issue, again, we didn't ask for Amari to be injured. We didn't ask for Amari to require basically two people keeping an eye on him, right? You know what I'm saying? Because but I'm not allowed to have help. Everybody else can have help, but not me. Okay. So in the meantime, let's just get focused here, right? So okay, we'll packed in a way that will not fall on top of Amari and Andre. Well, you know, everything is on bookshelves, pretty much. You know, the clothes situation is what it is. The blankets, the pillows, and that kind of crap is what it is, right? You know, I don't know. Anything to bitch and complain about, right? Should be moving about, right? the kitchen counters, you know, I clear them off, and as fast as I clear them off, they pile back up because, you know, whatever. So I'm hoping that once we get downstairs, we'll make an effort to use the downstairs kitchen a little more, and maybe that will start to help to alleviate some of these issues that I've got with this kitchen. But this is a non-functioning kitchen because it's like central, it's like Grand Central Station, you know? Okay. The home will be able to accommodate, we already talked about that, needs, okay. The next one down, okay, so this is physical health, okay. Andre, I'm just reading this little section and I'm going to end the video, okay. It's just listening to you distracts me. So this is the section where top 3 priority needs to be addressed. See, that's misleading by itself because they say, we're here to help you with your needs. We're here to help support you with your needs. When they are dictating, subliminally criminalizing, and being misleading, right, for an ulterior motive, right, for an end goal, it doesn't become needs. Okay? Nowhere in there have they addressed my needs or our needs. Having help with these mice, with the outside of the house, would be a great thing for me. Because whatever I'm doing downstairs is probably pointless, and I'm probably, anything I bring down, anytime I bring it down, I don't care what it is at risk to becoming a mouse nest. For a mouse to get in there, start chewing around, and making a little nest. Whether it's my books, my fabric, well, I wouldn't say food too much because most of everything's in Mylar buckets and shit, but there are a few boxes there. But the mice don't seem to be too interested in them because whatever's in those boxes is vacuum sealed and, you know, and yada yada. You know, but I'm very concerned about my books. I'm very concerned about, you know, like, how about I'm cleaning out the cupboards, I'm washing everything, I'm putting everything in clean, and then I come and I run and I got mouse shit in there with mouse piss everywhere, and that's where my freaking plates are. Or that's where my roasting pan is. I mean, what's the point? You're just going around in circles. They don't care about that, though. That's my needs. I need help with the landlord. And if you want me to move, then your department should make sure that the next landlord does the right thing. Versus putting that full onus on me when there's already that problem with the landlords in general. Right? In terms of not looking after their houses very well. Because they don't have to. And it's just a money grab for them, right? So the least that they have to do, the more money that they have for themselves, right? And then they use excuses, well, we're tearing down the house, it's all going to be property development, so why would we fix the door? We don't. Well, at least make it so that I can open and close it, make it so that, you know, the thing doesn't fall out of its frame, you know, because of that little rail, and even then it wasn't safe. I still have to put a freaking stick in there. But I'd rather that door than an open and closed door because then you're really going to have a problem not getting a gurney out. Right? Right? So if anyone's protecting the gurney in that situation, it would be me. Because I'm insisting that this, what I have, stays versus an open and closed because you're very limited and you won't have that berth to be able to get a gurney out. Not that I'm thinking about a gurney. Because I don't use gurneys against people as my choice of weapon to manipulate them and to scare them, to intimidate them, to control them. Judy will continue her eye care with her doctor. Okay, so how does that help me with my needs? How are they helping me with my needs by making it sound like I need to be told to do that? Are they offering to pay for my taxi so I can get there? Or are they just telling me I have to get there? Because for some reason, I haven't done it. I don't listen. I don't care. I'm negligent. Goals. Judy will continue her eye care with her doctor. Judy will attend all medical appointments as necessary and follow reasonable recommendations made by her health care provider. Still focused on me. Every time I do surgery, my eyes get worse. Just going for eye tests and mucking with their machines, my eyes get worse. The Roto-Rooter only worked for 3 years. It was supposed to work for 5 to 7, but not for me. The tube hasn't even worked for 6 months. The laser didn't work. And he wants to put a tube in this one. Hell no. It ain't happening. So what? Does that mean I'm not being responsible? Because I'm tired of being a fucking guinea pig here? Used and abused? So taxpayers can pay out $10,000 for a surgery that injured my eye, in my opinion, and made things worse a whole lot faster, versus maybe I should have just stayed on the freaking drops and just sucked it up, buttercup, versus playing Russian roulette and then have the doctor blame me because the surgery was a failure? Or am I required, based on what they said, to take the next freaking surgery, whatever that doctor has to offer to me? Because if I don't, somehow I become negligent, and then that will be a reason for them to take Amari away, because I'm tired of being a pincushion. I'm tired of having my eyes get worse and worse each and every time I go basically to see the eye doctor, especially if it's anything to do with let me fix it, let me help you to bring down the pressure. But when the pressure doesn't go down and your eye gets more messed up, just blame it on the glaucoma. Don't blame me for it. Just blame the glaucoma. Well, if that's the case, why the hell are you doing anything? If all you ever do is just blame the glaucoma. Like I said, think about the timing here, people. Think about the timing. So now they're trying to say that I don't pay attention to trying to, I did that tube to be there for my grandkids. Even though I didn't want to. My instincts told me not to do it. And I was right. I shouldn't have done it. But I was guilt-tripped into it. I was gaslighted into it. If I didn't do it, and I didn't bring down the pressure with the eye drop, I'd go blind within 2.5 months. If you got 2.5 months to see, and you got one little chance to do a little surgery that might extend it, which one are you going to take? The 2.5 months? Maybe you might see, maybe you won't. Do the surgery, at least you'll be able to see a little longer, because that will bring down the pressure versus the drops. Because there was no guarantee with the drops. He put fear into me to do it. And so I did it. And now I regret it. Because it's worse. But there's no going back, as it's being held against me, where I'm being made to look like I haven't done jack shit. And if I do anything, it's with pliers, like pulling out teeth with pliers. Right? That's wrong. That's what I mean. It's a smear campaign. Judy will attend all. So now I'm forced to go to all. What's that supposed to mean? All. Medical appointments. As necessary. As if I haven't been doing that. Where were the social workers when COVID was around? And I couldn't get a freaking referral anywhere in the province of British Columbia, Canada for over 2 years, where I didn't have no eye drops. So because of that, the PSI was over 50 PSI for 2 years because I couldn't get a freaking prescription for eye drops because nobody was seeing patients because of orders by Dr. God, Dr. Death, aka Bonnie Henry, whatever she is to you, made it so that everything was on freaking lockdown. And then I went blind without even realizing I was going blind. And now all of a sudden, I'm required to do all this shit? Well, why wasn't I required to? Why wasn't these people that do these things, why weren't they required to make sure that I got my eye drops? By seeing patients. By having their doors open versus just their lights on. You know, the good old days, oh, just the light is on, but you can't come in because the order is we're not allowed to see patients right now because everybody's hiding out with their masks on. Yeah, don't want to get COVID. Go away. Who cares if you go blind? Did the job, though, didn't it? It set me up for this now, didn't it? Huh? Just make it so that nobody sees her so she can't get no referral, no eye drops for 2 freaking years so the social worker can come back and then treat you like you don't do shit. Yeah, right. Right. This is why I want to get in touch with a lawyer, people, because this isn't fair. This is way too freaking insinuating. Insinuating. And then you go over, oh, okay, so I gotta start from the top again, because it goes section, down, okay? All right, so let's just go through this. I'm almost done, and then I'm ending this. So the goal, all right? Judy will continue her eye care with her doctor. That's the goal. That's how they're helping me, by telling me to do that. They're not asking me to, they're telling me to. Judy will. That's being dictated to, okay? They're not saying Judy has agreed because we asked. No. They're just saying I will. Because that's what they expect. Judy will attend all. Yeah. Because if I don't attend all appointments as necessary and follow reasonable recommendations made by her healthcare profession, I have to be told to do that. That's how they're helping me, by telling me to do that, and then take it over to the strategies, including persons responsible. Judy will remain connected to her ophthalmologist. Okay? So I have to stay with this dude. I can't just go get a new one. I suppose I could go get a new one, but you better make sure you have a new one first before you leave the one that you have. Because if you don't have one, they're coming after you. Because somehow I'm being irresponsible, even though I couldn't get eye drops for 2 years, based on what happened with the province, with their orders, and shutting everything down. And making it so that no doctors, family doctors were available. You know, I went, right? You know, have doctors commit heinous crimes by denying, you know, well, I wouldn't say heinous crimes, but, you know, be buttheads like Dr. Wyszynski, where, you know, take me to court if you want your dead daughter's medical files. But other than that, don't come back because you're not going to get no eye referral from me from me so that you can go get eye drops from a specialist. So, don't ask to have your disability form refilled out, because I don't want to be your family doctor, because I like to hide illegal organ harvesting and murder and all that crap, because somehow that guy was getting some kickbacks out of it, and that's why he told me to take his ass to court to get my dead daughter's medical files from my freaking public clinic. Yeah, okay. And then, of course, they're going to follow up on me in October. Yeah. Well, have you been seeing the eye doctor? What's going on? And then we're going to go to indicators. The next one down. Judy will tell. Spill the beans. You're on probation. Cough up the information. Provide proof. Judy will tell the social worker about any challenges she's having with her eyesight. Well, I don't think you're going to need me to tell you when I just can't do shit no more. That will speak for itself. Because I'm going to do until I can't do anymore. And then you can go in like buzzards and pick me apart. And then you go to the strategies, Judy will consent. Judy will. I don't have a choice. Judy will. I don't have a choice. Judy will. I don't have a choice. Consent for the social worker to speak with the optometrist as needed to better understand what is needed to support her. No! You are not supporting me. They are not supporting me. They are plotting and scheming how to take Amari out of the house with Andre deciding where he wants to go while the house crumbles, falls apart, implodes, goes even further into bankruptcy. They don't give a shit where I end up after that fact, because mission accomplished. This is child protection, Judy. We're only here for Amari and kind of like for Andre, but technically he doesn't fall under our department because he's too old. But besides that point, that's why they want him to hook up with the freaking youth workers, because it's a freaking different department. But he's not a bad kid, even when he's being provoked out on the road by a bunch of freaking crazy adults that like to stalk kids when they're riding their bike with a backpack full of freaking food in there. It's not like he's going to the stores and stealing. He's always going with money. Judy will consent. And then Judy will continue to think about how her eye... Judy will continue to think about how her eye sight impacts her ability to be the primary caregiver to Amari, not relying on Andre. I'm going to leave it on that, okay? Because I said one page. So now they don't want Andre helping me, even though he's been helping me for 8 years. So that speaks for itself. Because they're not providing any support for anyone else to help me with Amari. they expect me to do everything by myself. So I guess the next caregiver, whoever gets a Mari, has to be prepared to do absolutely everything by themselves based on what I just read. So it's a lopsided game where it's already been determined as to who's going to win with absolutely no rules. Never mind being fair about how the game is, quote unquote, being played. So if you were in that situation, what would you do?